Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks. So, I tell you what I'd like to do with our time this afternoon. Um, I'd like to dip into Shark Tank to use it as a platform to learn some lessons together today. Because this show is going into its 11th season. It's been on other places in the world like Canada for 14. Extraordinary outcomes, both good and bad, for investors and for the entrepreneurs that have come on that show. But, you know, I like to look at it from what we can learn because these are real businesses. This is a show that provides capital to real startups. In the early days, very small amounts. These days, much more, sometimes $2, $3, $4, $5 million. And so what happens here is rather remarkable. I'm going to take us on a journey today to learn from the show's perspective as a marketing tool. And, you know, people are always, you see them on Shark Tank saying, is there a patent here? How do I get my capital back? If I invest in this, how do I ever see returns? Or how do I protect it? Can I put a moat around it? In season 3 of Shark Tank, when the show was starting to grow and become geometrically successful in terms of viewership, it went from a few 100,000 to 10 million people watching it. And I began to wonder as these entrepreneurs came on the stage, what's it worth to get in front of 10 million eyeballs, even if you don't get a deal? That's got to be worth something because you're telling your story. And to me, that's really interesting because you think about the challenges most businesses have in getting market share as they're trying to acquire customers. So I decided, well, maybe I'll just invest in something that's a commodity that there's nothing to protect it with, of which there are tens of thousands of companies that do the same thing. Pick one of them, because you've never heard of any of them, and bring it up into the Shark Tank platform and measure what would occur. And then along comes this company called Wicked Good Cupcakes. What is more of a commodity than a cupcake? Water, sugar, flour, butter. Anybody can make it. And indeed, within 5 miles of here, there's probably 3 or 4 commercial kitchens making cupcakes for tomorrow's coffee shops. You've never heard of them, you never will. This company wanted $75,000 to invest in a commercial kitchen. Nobody was going to give them a dime. Not a chance in hell anybody's going to invest in this thing. I thought, this is the one. Let's invest in this and pull it up and see what happens to it. Maybe we'll learn something. The reason I want to show you this one is it forever changed the way we as investors considered the Shark Tank platform. It forever changed what every other company did afterwards that came on. It forever changed the way we measured customer acquisition costs. It forever changed the way we use the platforms and social media platforms that are out there. It changed everything. This company was sort of the beginning of using the Shark Tank platform to market businesses in a way that had never been done before. So what I want to do is basically show you a couple of minutes of tape from that time. Then I'm going to walk you through the numbers. This is extraordinary what occurred here, and everybody will learn something from it. So let's have a couple of minutes of Wicked Good Cupcakes from Cohasset, Massachusetts. Here we go. Okay, so what happens to this company? No one's ever heard of Wicked Good Cupcakes. It airs on a Friday night at 9 o'clock. The biggest problem all of these companies have, even today, is they have to guesstimate how much traffic is going to be driven to their site as a result of being on primetime television. So they either rent web services or they have to rent rows of servers. They have to get capacity. Invariably, they underestimate what happens. The power of network television is extreme. And they blow up and they lose the opportunity to acquire those customers that happen during the period of their airing. Remember, it starts at 9 o'clock in Boston and it goes right through to the West Coast in different times. So you really need capacity from 9 o'clock right through to 2 in the morning, New York time. Now, even today, about 90% of them blow up. They just can't guess. They don't know. Even from the history, it depends on how compelling the pitch is. Not this time. This was the first ever. What happened here was the husband of Tracy, the mother you saw there, worked at Fidelity. He was a statistician in their online trading group in Back Bay, Boston, where they had a massive server farm. So he went to his bosses and said, look, we don't know what's going to happen, but could you lend us some capacity to support this local business during the hours of 9 to 2 in the morning, Boston time, just in case we get a lot of interest in Wicked Good Cupcakes? So his bosses said, we want to support, they knew Shark Tank by then, and we want to support a local business. We'll do that for you. Well, that night, we nearly took down Fidelity. And what occurred here was an extraordinary beginning of a journey for this company, because tens of thousands of orders came streaming in. It's extremely hard to sell a food product on television because you obviously can't taste it. But you saw in that video, this is a 660-calorie jar of cupcakes. And Cuban unscrewed it. You're supposed to take a couple of bites, screw the cap back on, stick it in the fridge. He chowed the whole thing down. Then he asked for another one. And so people were watching this and were extremely compelled to try it. And thousands of orders came in. Now, in America, this is a stat that remains the same, 8 out of 10 companies that are started today will fail within 3 years for one singular reason. They're never able to get their customer acquisition costs below the lifetime value of the customer. A fancy way of saying they go bankrupt advertising. Big problem. 80%. When Scott Noonan went back into Fidelity on Saturday morning and started looking at the data, remember the guy's a statistician, he realizes that 99% of them were new customers. His customer acquisition costs were zero, nothing. Now you're starting to understand the secret sauce of Shark Tank. So he says to his wife and daughter, get back on television, el pronto. Go figure out how we can keep doing this. Don't let this story end here. So here they are a few weeks later on a local affiliate for ABC in Boston. They picked up 12,000 more customers, zero customer acquisition costs, nothing. Here they are on ABC 2020 in what was called the Salesman Challenge. They took cupcake trucks, parked them around Manhattan, and had men and women attempt to sell them to complete strangers, trying to get a winner out of it. It's a 4-minute show, 36,000 more customers, customer acquisition cost, zero. Here they are with Kris Jenner. What does Kris Jenner have to do with cupcakes? Nothing. She has nothing to do with cupcakes. But she's on television, more customers, thousands more customers. Here they are a few years ago in Faneuil Hall in their retail pop-up, selling their 1 millionth jar to a woman from Philadelphia. We knew that was going to happen that day. We obviously flew down there. So did all the other networks to tell this extraordinary story. Thousands more customers on this one.